a gente vai os making offs aí do God of War, né? Tô deixando aqui esse lado aberto, né? Porque daí eu posso em tempo real, sem precisar de celular, sem precisar estar me desvencilhando aí, posso ver. Alerta de spoilers, documentário discute pontos da trama e elementos do jogo God of War 3. Para evitar os spoilers, antes de você terminar o jogo, volte para a tela do menu agora. E realmente, eles vão falar da produção, tem muito de spoiler aqui na história, né? Quarto concurso anual de fantasias de Halloween. É uma festa com muita bebida, comida e diversão. Tem não, amor. Hoje é sábado. É o Frankenstein, filho.
I was pretty confident that our sales would be better than God of War 1, but I was rather skeptical that our reviews would be. God of War 2, I think at the end of the day, probably equaled, if not slightly exceeded the first, which I was not expecting and was quite satisfying.
I can't believe I'm fucking doing this. This is the final chapter. So I think big goals for me are to finish this off in such a
Só terminar de uma forma grandiosa por altura do que fizemos em God of War 1 e 2.
of what we've done, what we set up in 1 and 2.
Ó, esse aí é Cory Balrog. Esse aí, ele foi o produtor de God of War 1 e 2. O 3 ele não participou. Não sei porque que ele tá aí, né? E ele voltou agora nesse novo God of War aí. Isso aí é a galera que produzia aí numa festa de Halloween, né?
When I think of God of War, I think of the best action platform out there right now. I think other games and other companies look at us and go, how are they doing it? How can we make it like them? And that's rad, because I've totally been at the company where we looked at that game and went, man, how do we do that, you know?
My main hope is that it escapes the destiny of sequels as well as God of War 2 has escaped the destiny of sequels.
I would be satisfied if we tied up,
Close the book.
we're past the stage of figuring out what we want to do. We're now in the early phases of sorting out the how we're going to do it.
Making of the God of War 3. 6 de novembro de 2007, né? Quer dizer, 2007 foi o ano que saiu o God of War 2. Diretor criativo.
Next Friday will be my last day at Sony Santa Monica. The
Ah,
bomb was dropped.
esse aí é Balrog. Tá, ele saiu da Santa Mônica, Sony Santa Mônica.
Summer, everyone was quiet, no one said anything, and perhaps there was a tad bit of shock.
Talvez tenha sido um choque.
Kill me, 'cause I really want to say something, but it's
Porque
just
quero dizer alguma coisa. Qualquer coisa que eu diga vai soar como se eu fosse um idiota.
When I heard that Corey was going to leave, he was,
Mais que saber que o Core ia sair.
takes a long time to
É preciso tanto tempo para criar uma equipe de sucesso assim como para criar um produtor. É sempre chato quando a pessoa central da sua equipe decide partir. A primeira emoção que sentimos foi de choque. Ninguém esperava. Foi como uma bomba. Não quis acreditar, claro. Pensei que ele seria o último a sair. Estou muito triste, muito decepcionado. Nunca estamos preparados para uma coisa dessa. E nunca nos avisam, já chegam anunciando. Foi um choque, nunca esperei que o Core abandonasse o projeto assim. Mas depois do choque inicial, fiquei feliz por ele, porque vai experimentar coisas novas. No mundo dos games é muito comum isso, tá, gente? Cria uma certa confusão para nós, mas acho que vamos resolver. Quer dizer, o cara tá num dos melhores estúdios, né? Sony Santa Mônica, né? Que é referência para a criação de jogos, né? É um estúdio enorme, é um dos mais importantes da Sony, que hoje é líder de consoles. Mas o cara é sempre melhor, eu quero novos ares e tal, e vai embora. Tanto é que foi e agora voltou, né? Ele tá lá, na Santa Mônica, agora fazendo um novo God of War.
is a very difficult choice and a difficult time and not a very happy choice to be making. But, you know, on the horizon, the door
It's hard to imagine someone stepping into Corey's shoes. He's amazing.
Many people wondered whether we could do God of War 2 without David Jaffe, who did God of War 1, and I think we succeeded at that. I think we can succeed at creating a third version without Corey Barlog.
I think it's kind of neat, actually.
Corey Barlog, não é Balrog, é Barlog. O cara fez até um exemplo que David Jeff fez o primeiro e não estava no segundo, né? E o segundo foi melhor do que o primeiro. E o terceiro melhor do que o segundo. Né? Espero eu que o God of War 4 seja melhor do que o terceiro. Eu não tenho dúvida quanto a isso, tá? Pelo menos de série principal, os jogos sempre seguiram. Foi né? Eles sempre cresceram um jogo na série principal.
From both of those guys is the fact that they were themselves.
I'm super excited about this. This team kicks ass. It's not a lot, but this type of situation is kind of garbage that they've been going through in the last month. As far as I'm concerned, this team's second it up.
But Stig is fucking amazing.
Stig's a pretty good leader, I think, mostly because you're probably afraid of him when you first meet him.
The entire team really respects him. Everybody communicates well with him. He's not unfair with any of his decision makings.
From my perspective, he's much more easier to work with. He is much more structured and engineer friendly.
One of my strengths is to try to lead by example. Hopefully that filters through to the rest of the team and they're able to approach their task with total excellence.
This game is and that's really where the personality of the studio comes from. That's where the drive of the team comes from, wanting to critique every element and make everything that's in the game the best that it can be. It really is driven from the leads and from the culture of this studio, and that has not changed even through the turnover.
So working on the PS3 is very challenging. It's a lot of new technology and a lot of new techniques are required to make a game on the PS3, which means that we have to learn some completely new techniques for writing our game code. It's also a completely new graphics processor, so we have to learn about those graphics techniques and work out how we expose them to the artist in order to make the best possible art and give the game the look that the art team is interested in. We have a similar set of problems working with the designers. People's expectations for games on the PS3 are much higher. They want to see, more enemies and more complicated effects and more ragdoll physics on the characters and realistic looking reactions when you hit people. So yeah, there's a tremendous amount of challenge working on the PS3.
God of War 2, the team was able to throw so many things into the game, get things up and running and finding out, is that fun or not? The hard transition for God of War 3 is getting all that to work again because we have so much new technology that has to be built.
You know what I'm saying?
Everybody has to relearn their own personal expectations and their limitations and how they're projecting their schedules and their tasks and things like that. Everybody is counting on everybody else to kind of make accurate predictions on what they can do. It's tough right now because everything's new. It's just so much more involved. That's very worrisome. When are we going to get to the point where we can say something's going to take 4 weeks to do and it's really going to take 4 weeks to do? It's understandable that nobody understands that right now.
PlayStation 3, we're able to push a lot
Foi
more
mal.
polygons, a lot more texture resolution.
É porque tá desligado, mano.
Hyper-realistic. I mean, they're so realistic now that we can actually see pores on skin and hair and eyebrows and nose hairs. You can see everything. We have a lot of work ahead of us.
Vamos jogar batutinha.
6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Mas joguinho, né, Paulinho? É joguinho ou não é, Paulinho?
It's not like before, it's like 5 days we can make one.
For me, it's not knowing kind of where the limits are. You can make
Bonito.
stuff look so super realistic now, and that takes a lot of time. Whereas before, we really had to define limits.
Yeah, it's exponentially.
Do I see you?
We're expected to be able to beat games that some studios have released 2, 3, even 4. Gamers are expecting us to have better technology, better art, better visuals, better gameplay. Across the board, they expect it to be better. And that's pretty intimidating in itself.
We're going crazy with the detail. When it's done, I think it's going to look incredible.
You're going to see Kratos do a lot more subtle movement, more facial animation, things that
the human eye just, usually takes for granted, but now we can include all those things.
The things that we can actually accomplish are starting to now really become things that are only limited by our imagination.
With the new hardware and the new system, we're able to kind of start pushing the player experience and creating like a much more kind of cohesive world. Like, the Titan before used to be in a cinematic, and now you're actually like running on the damn thing. So it's like, whoa, we're getting there.
Titans have never done anything like that.
They're pretty crazy.
It's insane. The fact that you're going to be able to run around this like moving character and it's basically a moving level, it's pretty insane.
From a programming perspective, they're a big challenge. We designed all of our animation systems and everything to deal with a roughly 2 meter high character. Exactly. If his little finger twitches slightly, there's not too much of a big deal.
Exactly.
But when your character's 2 kilometers high, then a little twitch in the finger suddenly becomes like a really big deal. The very first moment those were mentioned, I was like, oh Jesus, this is going to be a big problem.
Yes.
But hey, it wouldn't be God of War if we didn't try something cool.
Exactly.
Didn't think we could do when we started.
Because I'm very proud of this game, and you guys, I've invited a storyteller friend of mine to come in our walkabout. So Stan Lee is going to join us today. And,
o Stan Lee aí. O Stan Lee era o criador de vários personagens da Marvel. O mais famoso com certeza é o Homem-Aranha, né? Apesar que tem uma briga de um cara dizendo que foi ele que fez, não sei o que, não sei o que. Inclusive o Stan Lee chegou a dizer, cara, foi a gente dois que fez, foi você. E o cara ainda ficou irritado. Quem quiser ver, só é dar uma olhada lá no... Acho que o Zangado tem alguma saga lá sobre o Homem-Aranha. E ele conta essa história, é muito interessante.
I love to write dialogue. Maybe we could try something new. A video game with lots of dialogue. I'm sure it would sell like a bomb. And I love the way this hand is there.
Oh yeah, and then when he moves the hand, we'll like make that to kind of get destroyed a little bit and get all kinds of dust flying off of it.
This is one of the best things I've ever seen.
Cool.
That is beautiful.
Thing Corey did before he left.
Okay, so long, fellas.
We're just giving each other props here.
Yeah. Cheers.
There's no such thing as a bad walkabout, because, beer at work.
Yeah. And also, Stanley rules! Woo!
Just crawled up there. It's Stanley!
Stanley!
I'm fine with it as long as we make it seem like it's in-game as much as possible.
I'm still learning every single day, and I imagine that process won't ever end. And there's so many things that you can learn from every individual on this team.
Stig is kind of man of the team, very easygoing, very casual, but he's also extremely intelligent, very thoughtful. I think the thing that's been successful for him is that people just want to help him out. They just want to make a good game.
Stig just keeps pushing along. He's got 2 brand new twins at home, and
yeah, it just keeps on
he's
going.
got this other baby, this big baby on his back right now, so he's doing great.
Since last Halloween, we made a lot of progress. We've got the story of the game done. We've got the whole design direction completed. 3 months from now, we're going to be doing our press event.
Everyone gets to go home early!
The first couple times when Stig addressed the team, it was so clear how nervous he was. He would kind of stumble on his words, and he'd literally, turn red, like a stoplight. It was really kind of endearing. But then to watch him sort of evolve, and honestly, I think I was a little bit concerned that, our game director is our public face. And we actually gave him, some media training. And Stig actually asking people, he says, honestly, I don't want to think about all this stuff. I just want to be myself. Is that okay? And they said, you know what? Absolutely.
That looks good.
Oh, wow. That's how tall Kratos is. He's probably closer to the size of this guy.
Will is our stand-in Kratos when Kratos isn't here.
I'm about as close as you can get.
We picked the venue and the location for the spot, and we brought all the media here. We have something like 60 people here from the media. I can't wait for them to see the actual gameplay. These guys are going to be thrilled.
Love Kratos. Kratos is hot. Be nice to see if he ends up a god or destroying Olympus. I do love the violence as well. You know, the women are very beautiful in the game as well. I can't wait to see what new characters they've brought to us, what new enemies, and I'm really excited.
I also want the sizzle, you know? Maybe we can focus it in a little bit more. We can play with that a little bit. Yeah.
The development team has worked so hard on this project, so it's really fun to see when all their hard work comes to fruition.
I'm going to get through the first couple slides up here, and then I'm going to start to walk around. Nobody has seen the gameplay outside of our studio, so this is going to be the first time. I want to get this over with. I'm nervous, but I'm also excited about this. I think we've got something really cool to show. I'm looking forward to seeing people's reactions. Can we play it? This is our first big kind of press thing. There's definitely some nerves with that. Anxious. I'm definitely anxious.
Essa é a apresentação à imprensa, né? Normalmente essa apresentação ela é a portas fechadas, né? É que as pessoas pensam.
What is the vision for God of War 3? We want to define this generation with this game. We're going to take a close look at him. I'll talk about some of the features that we're using on him. Here he is. We've got blended normal maps on him right now, so you can see the realistic muscle flexing. I would imagine that we've got one of the most advanced systems for that in the industry right now. The battle's in full swing. The god Helios is in battle with a massive Titan. And Kratos is going to launch into battle and start doing some damage on the grunts here. Now, Todd can easily just grab one of the grunts by pressing circle, and if he continues pressing circle, he can beat the crap out of him. But if he presses triangle, then he can rip him apart. If he presses X, then he can throw him. And one more move, square, uses it as a battering ram, and then he can take it, mash circle, smash his head against the wall. And all these moves are interchangeable. Meet our latest AI, the Chimera. Part snake, part goat, part lion. Todd has just unleashed the Cestus on him, and you can see it's a brawling weapon. Now, the way the Chimera works is a three-stage enemy. First, you fight the snake stage, and then it changes its stance and you fight the lion stage. We're really having fun with gore in this game. Entering the Cyclops. Every action that the Cyclops makes is a direct reaction from the pain that Kratos is inflicting on him.
Ó, e nota uma coisa, nesse aí, pode notar nessa demonstração, a parte do sangue, veja, a parte do sangue, que Kratos é sujo de sangue quando ele puxa, não aparece de jeito nenhum. Ah, você vê que as texturas não são tão ricas quanto do jogo.
This is our newest form of travel in God of War, Icarus Ascension. Todd now has full flight controls over Kratos and basically dodging gameplay. That's it.
Oh my god, it's fantastic. It was great.
It was phenomenal. I mean, like, I thought that I had a concept of what it would be like. This pretty much blew everything completely out of the water.
We're putting a lot into this game. I said I think this game needs to be a defining game for this generation, and I truly believe it will. I can't comment on what the future holds for the series because, you know, I'm focused on God of War 3 right now, but this is God of War this is it. This is the end of the story. We got a lot of work to do, so there's no time for relaxing, that's for sure. E3 is obviously a big thing. We got to get this playable to the public, what we just showed on the demo here. we're in pretty good shape for that, but we got to get the game done. We still got a lot of work left to do.
Hoje em dia é muito complicado para as empresas fazerem demos. Eu até entendo, porque é tão complicado fazer um jogo, ainda mais AAA, e você disponibilizar uma demo específica. Tanto é que tem muito jogo, você vê o Prey. O Prey teve uma demo, mas a demo nada mais do arquivo do jogo, né? Então é um jogo mesmo, ali não é feito especificamente como era antigamente. As demos na geração passada eram isso. Você tinha uma parte do jogo, né? Pra evitar spoiler, mas que você mostrasse todas as mecânicas do jogo, né? O que podia se esperar. Então isso realmente dava trabalho.
This team sets the bar really high. We could settle for a lot less and probably be a lot closer to being done, but with this group, they're never satisfied. Yeah, we never do things the easy way.
Personally, I'm worried, but then I think it's good that I'm worried because that forces me to actually get the shit done.
There's definitely pressure, self-created pressure, and then pressure from other departments just to get everything done. We're all just trying to do our best.
I think the most pressure we get is from ourselves. Every team is always looking at the other team's work and commenting and critiquing. So we're really pushing each other the most, I think.
It's a lot of back and forth.
Following week, it's absolutely nothing moves because we're going to need to take every freaking second to make sure it's stable. And we are at frame rate. So, stay with that. You want to just,
The dead soldiers on the ground aren't in the poses?
Nope, and they don't have blood streaks and stuff in here.
Tyler's doing blood streaks.
Alright, so we need to both over here. The inactive mode would look like kind of like it does right now. The focus shot, the active mode, the move we're holding up, and we have a like a glow around it.
We have to open and close the book.
Yeah, there's a bug for it.
I'm sure we would have known when we built it, because we didn't build it to open and close.
Wait, you need the book to open and close?
Yeah. There's no limit to good ideas, but there is a limit to how many of those good ideas that you can actually implement. And even if you make decisions and you make progress on things, it doesn't mean that you can get all those things done. We need to be able to tell people this thing is active now.
Can we remove it from E3?
Are you serious?
No, I'm not. I mean, there's a lot of other shit here to get done besides getting a book to have in an active state.
Let's say we don't do the open and close for E3. It would just have a glow effect and a light that comes with it, and that's it.
Do we just put a spark on it then?
Absolutely having to compromise for the schedule right now. I have to trust production, and I have to trust the fact that they're telling me that we can't get things done. So I feel like there's little things that have been compromised. I don't know that the player's going to necessarily miss them, but I sure am. That's part of making games. You don't always get what you want.
This seems like harder to play.
We have to keep in mind that somebody from the street is going to be playing those targets. And I don't know, the way it looks right now, on 3 tries, people will throw down the score.
The stuff we just went through, pretty rough. It's a little frustrating from the respect that it's been kind of at this state for a long time now. Kind of wondering when it's going to get fixed. The struggle or the challenge.
This is sprint week.
Uma semana da corrida porque vamos.
To get a lot of work done and make some headway going into E3.
As far as crunch goes, we're not going to call it crunch anymore. We're going to call it sprint, and then everything will be fine. As long as we do that.
Name, it'll all be fine. Tonight's the first night of crunch.
Yeah, so
when the euphemism sprint.
Fuck. I hate crunch. It sucks.
Right now, I'm creating a new build, and hopefully that will enable the rest of the studio to then continue working on the awesome content that they're creating for E3. They're definitely waiting on me. Definitely.
As far as my end, I feel I'm okay, but then at the same time, I kind of feel like I'm waiting on technology a little bit to kind of come online.
We just have a ton of bugs to fix. We're lighting's kind of broken, fog's kind of broken, so we're just trying to kind of survive, fix all our bugs, and get all of our tech in place, so we can get this thing done.
Sprinting now.
Tonight's the first time the team has worked together as one, and there's a certain kind of level of excitement that goes into it and dread because we're still working, but it's a fun group to be with and we're trying to get stuff done.
You know, we can only do so much, right? And we'll just try to do as much as possible, as quickly as possible, and that's it. Hopefully we end up with something pretty cool, though.
This is the biggest E3 we'll ever have.
Everybody wants to still see if Santa Monica still has it.
É, meu amigo, são de Santa Mônica, assim como a Naughty Dog, né? Mas tem outros, né? Quantic Dream, né? Tem muitos estúdios aí da Sony. Tem um estúdio também aí do Gran Turismo, porque eu não curto Gran Turismo, né? Se eles criassem um Gran Turismo, assim como fizeram lá o estúdio de Forza, né? Criaram um jogo arcade, né? Porque você tem o Forza Motorsport, que é simulador, né? Ele foi criado para competir e tem se dado bem, né? Apesar que eu acho que estão destruindo a franquia, tendo que lançar todo ano o jogo. Mas eles criaram essa subdivisão de Forza, que é o Forza Horizon, que sempre são jogos de mundo aberto, corrida mais arcade. Eu soube que a Ubisoft ela vai lançar o The Crew 2, né? Vamos ver aí o que espero. The Crew 1 eu passei longe porque tinha tanto jogo, velho, de corrida no mercado. Você tem o Need for Speed Rivals, o Need for Speed 2015, o Drive Club, aí eu deixei de lado. Ele nem na minha lista tá. Vamos ver o 2, né? Eu vi ali que ele tem um modo de história bem legal, né? Bem legal, o primeiro The Crew. Talvez no segundo eu... Esse cara aí mesmo, ele era presidente da Sony dos Estados Unidos, né? Inclusive no lançamento do PlayStation 4, foi ele que fez aqueles anúncios lá que o PlayStation 4 daria suporte a jogos usados, não exigiria conexão permanente com a internet, né? Mas no finalzinho ele disse, a partir de agora para jogar online. Depois que ele deu tudo bom, né? Já que a Microsoft tinha feito aquela cagada lá de fazer essas exigências absurdas, aí no finalzinho ele disse, a partir de agora jogar online tem que ser pago. Aí, né? Mas aí todo mundo vê a forma como se diz, todo mundo já estava feliz, né? Porque uma coisa que a Microsoft queria impor, a Sony foi lá e disse, não, aqui é tudo diferente. Ou seja, o que tem de ruim ali a gente tem de bom aqui. Agora, o que existia de ruim lá a gente vai implementar aqui. Quer dizer, alguém duvida que na próxima geração a gente vai ter limitação a jogos usados? Apesar que, do jeito que tá indo as coisas, eu acho muito provável que um próximo console ele não tenha nem driver, né? Ele seja tudo realmente digital. Olha, é uma evolução natural. Infelizmente é uma evolução natural, né? Você vê aí no mercado americano, ao que parece, 70% dos jogos vendidos são digitais. Agora, eu não sei o rumo dessa pesquisa. Sabe por que eu digo? Porque 70%, mas de consoles é assim, tipo, se eu botar os consoles da Nintendo, da Sony e da Microsoft juntos, essa é a porcentagem? Eu acredito que não. Eu acredito que quando botar esse 70%, você bota Steam, e Steam não tem o que fazer. Steam ali é 100% jogos digitais, porque a Steam é uma loja digital, né? E se colocar, por exemplo, jogos de celular, você sempre vai baixar, não existe, né? Então a gente tem que ver esse tipo de situação, né? Eu gostaria de ver uma pesquisa, nos consoles, quanto é a porcentagem. Claro, Sony, Microsoft e Nintendo tem esses números e elas vão decidir o futuro do mercado ou como implementar isso num futuro próximo, né? Enquanto houver suporte a jogos usados, a venda de jogos usados terem suporte dos consoles, beleza. Porque no dia que disserem assim, jogo físico vai ser um negócio de cada. Você bota, pronto, é instalado e tchau. O que é que vai adiantar? Nunca mais a gente vai comprar jogo físico. Pra quê? Não serve pra nada. Depois que eu usar, não vou comprar digital, velho. Vamos ver aí. quando vier o PlayStation 5. Acredito eu que o PlayStation 5 deve sair no final, entre o final de 2019 e final de 2020. Né? É o que eu acredito. 2017 a gente vai ter negócio, 2018 aí a gente vai ver, né? Os consoles da família PlayStation ainda vendem muito, né? Ano passado venderam 20 milhões de consoles durante o ano fiscal. A meta para esse ano fiscal são 18 milhões. É menos, mas é mais do que o ano anterior, tá? Lembrando que o ano fiscal, né? Ele vai se encerrar em 2018. Né? Em 31 de março de 2018. Aí vai entrar um novo ano fiscal que vai terminar só realmente em 2019. Aí vai ser um ano que pode ser que o pessoal pense aí num novo console. É 2019, 2020. Enquanto tiver vendas aquecidas, né? Cá pra nós, você vê consoles como o PS Vita, que até hoje acho que venderam uns 15 milhões de consoles, tá aí no mercado desde 2012, né? Console como o Wii U, que tá desde 2012, vendeu aí, sei lá, umas 17 milhões de unidades em 5 anos. Você vender até 10 milhões de unidades por ano não é uma perca para a empresa, né? Ou seja, tá bem aquecida ainda a venda de consoles. E os caras fazem essa avaliação com base em números, né? Eles têm estudos, né? E a Sony tem sido bem aquecida, ou seja, mesmo que caia, por exemplo, esse ano vai ser 12 milhões, 18 milhões, eles conseguem. Aí ano que vem eles diminuem para 15. Mesmo assim, é um valor muito alto de produto sendo vendido. Né? 10 milhões, só 10 milhões. É um valor alto. Agora chegar num patamar que já tá caindo abaixo de 10 milhões, que é uma queda muito grande, né? Você notar, o PlayStation 4 ele vendeu 60 milhões, né? De consoles. Ele vai a 78 milhões nesse último ano fiscal, né? Então, o PlayStation 4 diziam, né, que o PlayStation 4 ele ultrapassaria o PlayStation 2, né, que é o console de maior sucesso na história, né? Vendeu mais de 150 milhões. Acho difícil, né? Acho difícil nessa altura do campeonato. Eu acho que se eles conseguirem vender pelo menos uns 100 milhões até lançarem um sucessor, talvez eles cheguem, né? Porque é um console bom, é um console interessante. A Sony, depois de lançar o seu concorrente, diferente da Nintendo. A Nintendo, quando ela lança o seu console, ela mata o anterior. Sempre é isso. A Sony não, a Sony ela dá suporte, a Microsoft também dá suporte. Eu me recordo que a Microsoft, quando lançou em 2013, ela disse, ó, a gente vai dar suporte ao Xbox 360 por 5 anos, sendo que, né, esse prazo aí que a Microsoft tem termina no meio do ano que vem. Vamos ver como é que vai ficar, né? Mas se eu fosse a Microsoft, eu continuaria dando suporte, né? Ainda é um console muito viável, principalmente aqui no terceiro mundo, né? PlayStation joga. Oi, lindo.
What are the big tech issues, Chris, that you need support on?
The only big tech issue we need support on at the moment is the issue with the collision.
The more static you can get him, the more precision you will get in your CS move.
The problem is that since it's a skin collision, the skin itself is not necessarily just
Com a cabeça, né? Com a cabeça doente sempre.
What we're doing hasn't really ever been done before, and so a lot of what we're running into are issues with trying to make it as exciting as possible, but working within the technical constraints that we have and in the time frame that we have.
I would say that the rewriting of skin collision
Que essas bosta. Um minuto, gente, que não tem ninguém.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and when you see it all together in the finished product with all the polish, I think it's going to be one of the most memorable experiences in gaming history. That's how I feel about it. I know it's going to be like that.
Kronos! My lord, it was you who killed their Spartan. Who else could?
About a month back, maybe 6 weeks back after Alpha, we were looking at the end of the game. We felt like there was a lot of fighting and it didn't really tie into the story. We had a couple brainstorming meetings and we came up with this idea that it would be really cool to go inside Kratos' head. Because that's where the struggle is really taking place.
The story's really never done until the game ships. And we're always tweaking it and modifying it, but I really like working on the story.
This emotional struggle inside his head. And, you know, really the object of this game is he has to realize that he has to focus on the powerful. And that's what he originally got when he was under his box. He was the evil things, he got the good things. And I think it's really, really good again. Keep in mind, we're very close to being here, and this is a big stretch. We really got to be zipping things up. Let's do it. That's all I got. That's all I got.
This is the third Halloween. I think for many it's probably a big relief. We're less than 3 months away from being done. It's been 2+ years. It's been an incredible journey. We've overcome so many pitfalls along the way with change of personnel, project redesigns. Despite all that, we've managed to continue to elevate and continue to push ourselves and continue to make the best products we as a team can do. And I think God of War 3 is living up to that.
To complete the third one is pretty amazing. We always tried to hit the highest mark we possibly could, and I think we've done it once again with this one. So we're going to have to wait and see what the fans think, but I have really high hopes.
Completing a trilogy is something I never did in my life, you know, and completing something like this is very special, you know, something that means a lot to me.
Sentimental moment.
This is truly one of the best teams I've ever worked with. I mean, across the board. I've worked with teams that were really strong on the art side, or really strong on design, or really strong on technology, but this is the only team I've worked with that fires on all cylinders.
The team faced a lot of challenges. The interesting thing is that this team has always faced challenges, and it sounds kind of cliche, but they're really good at facing challenges.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
You know,
we've discussed a lot. Obviously, we've gone through a lot of different changes, and the team always, I mean, you can put it any better, but they always rise to the challenge.
We really sat down and like focused what we wanted to, make good, and whatever wasn't working, we just kind of threw out the door and said, this is what we want, and that's what everybody focused on and made good. The fans are going to be blown away.
We're still getting surprised as far as how good things look. But the game's awesome. It's going to be good.
Been working with Kratos almost 7 years. I've learned a lot. He's taught me a lot. We've had some good times, but it's time for him to go to bed for a little while.
Agora vamos passar para a parte de animação do God of War, tá, gente? Volto em seguida.
One cool thing about this character also is that he's actually kind of like a throwback character. We're bringing him back from God of War 1. He actually wasn't in God of War 2, because we definitely want to keep reminding the player that this is a trilogy. It's like they're not supposed to be seen as separate games. So what about animating critics that are kind of challenging him?
He has a specific poses that describe him. He has a kind of like a language of poses. You have to use those poses to invent some new animation.
We're fortunate to have Leo here because he's joining us for God of War 3. He actually is a new member, one of the newest members of the team, so he's doing a great job.
One of the factors of animation is that
you're kind of trying to make it invisible. The more successful we are, the less you really notice the animation.
The stuff we've got going on with our boss fights, really impressive. It's another kind of key development for this game, I think.
We're working a lot with the designers, like way more closely, and creating new things with them.
There's a certain type of feeling that in animation we have to achieve, and the most important part, of course, is Kratos and how he moves. Kratos is very direct. We don't try to make him too fancy. If you notice, a lot of times when he's having conversations, he's just kind of standing there waiting for the moment where he needs to say something.
Everything that Kratos does happens for a reason. I don't know if anybody even noticed these things, but Kratos never moves backwards. He's an aggressive character. He moves with a purpose at all times.
We actually have wooden swords laying around all the time. We definitely get up and try to act it out. It's definitely always hazardous to walk around the animation area. You gotta watch out.
What are the challenges of animating something that big?
Planning out where everything needs to be, like nothing happens on accident. You need to know where everything is. I did not know that it was going to be this big. I just had an idea and I was like, I'm just going to go with it, which is kind of a bad idea. I learned my lesson. At the same time, I'm glad that it's the size that it is. Players will be happy that it's, I think they'll get adrenaline rushes from seeing the sequence.
Kratos, your death will not be a gentle one. My eyes!
Camera design is the layout of cameras for the player's point of view in the game. So what we do is we basically control that player's point of view throughout the experience.
Cameras start with the design sheet being delivered to us by the level designer. That's the most basic form. Once the cameras are in and it's been play tested and it proves that this is a good concept and we go forward with it, it gets sent off to the art department.
That's where they'll take it. They'll spend months sometimes making these areas look really epic, and then they'll get finished with it and then they'll hand it back to us. And a lot of times it's a little bit different, so we'll have to adjust some cameras.
Once the art comes back in and someone's spent a year building that level, it can be very touchy if they spent a year styling in this formation and my camera just goes right past it. We try to do our best to show off everyone's hard work.
And a lot of times there's a lot of cool things that you want to see in there that you can't see, so we'll go back and try to include those pieces in the shot that you get when you're playing the game. And from there, we play test it. This time externally, we get some people from the outside come in, take a look at what we're doing, making sure that that's great. After we get their feedback, implement their feedback, we're ready to go to the next area.
Anything we can do to make the cameras feel cinematic.
And they serve as a guide for the player to lead them in the direction that they need to go as well.
Yeah, whether they know it or not. Yeah. It's sort of like people who play the God of War franchise, after a while they get a feel that if the camera's looking this way, that's important.
In the very end, it always comes back down to what would the player want to see.
Most games in the action genre, the player gets most of the control over the camera. Players have no control over the camera in the God of War series.
Fans have been clamoring, and I hear you. We need to look around. We want to look around.
It should be understood that there's really no way we could make the levels look this good if the player could look anywhere they wanted.
What we're trying to do, though, this time around, is give you key points where you're in the adventure and you can control the camera. So maybe you're in a crazy puzzle room and you need to be able to kind of look around. So in some of these areas, we can give the player control, but in a limited fashion. I hope the fans will appreciate that we're trying to implement their feedback.
What new feature do you like best from the camera system?
The rail-driven cameras. I think
that's been my favorite new feature as far as the technology that we have at the camera. But it's a rail-driven camera. For someone who wouldn't know, a camera that's animated along a course that we have even more control over what the camera is showing.
The rail is essentially what we kind of live and die by. Let's say this is your camera rail, this line here, and let's say this is the thing that's driving the camera. And imagine this is a section of hallway or something like that that Kratos is moving along. We can take this camera here and we can key it. So we key to 2 different positions. So when Kratos is here, the camera is here. When he starts to move along, as Kratos moves along, it will drive the animation of the camera to animate to that position. So as you're cruising along, you kind of see it, this kind of view where it's low and looking up at him, and then as he moves along, it will kind of track him, follow him. That's like one of our cool new things that we have that we think that we can add a lot of kind of cinematic views to the game.
This is a perfect example of combat cameras right here. Here we're in a room, there's nobody to fight yet. And we can see we're taking a lower angle here. And as we come here, we'll trigger the spawning of a bunch of guys, and you can see the camera is going to lift up so we can show more of the action. And the framing, we're going to fit Kratos more towards the middle so you can see what's happening in front of him and see what's happening behind him. Try to give you the best view as possible for all the different combat actions that you're going to be taking. So this is an untextured view of the Olympus base. This is what the artist put together first before he assigned any lighting or textures to it. You can see these green boxes. These are the camera zones. They determine when Kratos is within one of those boxes, and once he is, the specific camera tied to that box gets activated. This is what a level would look like after we've added our cameras. You've got it panning around, following Kratos. If you were to take that off, it would basically look something like this. Very basic, not much excitement. You can't really tell where the player's supposed to be going. Adding the cameras is part of what definitely helps the level design flow. Here's a good example of some lead space. We're trying to tell the player this is where you want to go. Jump to this block over here. Once he's done the proper move, we zoom in, get him prepped for this nice shot of him making the leap, and then we transfer to another camera that shows him where you want to jump next, which is from here all the way down to there. So, and then he makes that jump. This would be an example of one of the vista shots we try to do in the game, which is you've got some really amazing piece of scenery in the background that the artists spent a lot of time building. So we want to get that into frame.
Vamos seguir agora, gente, para a arte dos personagens.
Character modeling is taking the art from visual development and turning it to a 3D model, painting it, giving it life, and then handing it off to our character riggers who send it off to animation. So we actually create the object itself.
It's in general just become, I guess you'd say more sophisticated, but it's more of a traditional media now. It's kind of, if you know how to sculpt traditionally, then you're going to transfer right in. Traditional skills are playing a more important role, which is great.
Do you feel that you channeling the great masters of art history to help you achieve
Michelangelo, Raphael, you know, they speak to me.
Really? One of the big things that I was looking forward to doing is nasty stuff like this, because before this I had been doing more technical stuff, more like realistic humans. Doing realism is fun to a certain extent. It's more fun to do something that's slightly realistic. There's a more artistic license as far as where you can go with it. With realism, there is no artistic license.
Creature design is kind of the most exciting thing. Like Peter was saying, artistic freedom, and just you can do kind of whatever you want. You can push things. I mean, that's what the great masters did. So it's just exciting to work on that kind of thing.
Here's my workstation. I have my Cintiq, which is what we use to paint and model. This is the monitor that we can actually draw on, paint on the screen, sculpt in ZBrush, which is very helpful and amazing. And then on the left of me, I have my standard monitor where I usually keep my reference.
for our project this time, per object.
Here's Hermes, the concept art that I got from Andy Park, who did a great job. You can see the boots are in there and what color they're supposed to be, what material. We're still working on the cloth, making sure that's all rigged nicely. And right now, I'm fighting with the hair, trying to make the hair look good. So hopefully by the time you see this in the game, it'll be looking nice and transparent. So here we are, starting him out in ZBrush and adding a lot of the little detail. Say if you wanted his skin to bulge around these straps, it would be really easy to go ahead and just add musculature in here.
Today you may defeat me, but in the end, Kratos, you'll betray only yourself.
This is the centaur in our game. Andy Park did the concept. They always do like a colored version first like this to kind of nail the feel of the character and like what he's all about. And then they'll give us these turnarounds like this one. We have, the horses have these like chest muscles that kind of flow up into the horse neck, this way. And we have abdomen muscles and these obliques that kind of flow in. And where our hips sit, is kind of so typically most people draw centaurs. This isn't, I'm not the first one to make one of these things, so, this has been thought about before. But typically, our hips, like where the hips would sit on a human, they put where the shoulder blades would be. It feels kind of like it would work,
Kratos was created from scratch simply because we weren't sure where we wanted to go in the third game, if we were going to change him at all, or if we were going to maintain the PS2 silhouette and essentially the same exact character. We felt like it might be an opportunity to really make some changes to him, considering the level of fidelity and sophistication and what we could create now on the PS3. We started out way out there. 2.5 years later, decided that he looks like the PS2 model. So we're back to where we started, but it's really coming together, and it's right for the game. Kratos is a very heroic, very stylized silhouette, a very thin waist, very broad shoulders. He has kind of a swimmer's build on steroids. He's 8.5 feet tall, and he has a head the size of a 4-foot-tall person. His waist is probably thinner than all of our wives. He's a trippy-looking guy, but he reads really well in the game. Basically, what I'm working on now is we've got an upper body and a mesh that the art director, as well as the director, really like. So now it's a matter of creating a blend map, which is new technology for Sony Santa Monica, in that we can do expressions. Basically, I'm just creating a rage, sculpting him looking angry, and we'll be able to blend this new facial expression into the current model. So we can go from here to here. The satisfaction comes in seeing the game saying, wow, that's him. Only look, you can see his veins and you can see him breathing. It looks better than the cinematics. That's kind of that's the satisfaction.
I bring the destruction of Olympus!
Cadence Crow in the opening cinematic flies down and ends up landing on this hapless victim. And as he's eating the guy, he rips the eyeball out of the socket. So it's especially juicy and nasty. Later today I'll be working on the vein that the eyeball's attached to. So maybe the crow can wrestle the eye out and really get some squirming going on in the audience sort of thing. The way it works is that you lay down your base color. For example, with this guy, you get a good skin tone going. And then from there, you add additional details. Like with this guy, his main details are the cuts that he has and then the dirt that's added. There's some sort of distortion going on here, and that's because it's actually being wrapped in 3D. So you can sort of feel where the chin line is just because of how these are bending.
Hercules, and he's wearing these cestises, and basically they're these huge gauntlets, just trying to get across the fact that he's kind of like this aged warlord. He's not a super fresh young guy, so he's got some fat to him and some history. He's basically Kratos' brother, so a lot of the visual elements that he has, I think, parallel what Kratos wears. The really fun stuff was sculpting his flesh and muscles and whatnot. This is a final concept image, but we take it a step further and put a level of polish on it that isn't there, because once it's here, this is a beautiful painting, but once it goes in the game, it needs to be perfect at every angle. Every angle you look at it has to be a great piece of work. So you have to go in and you take this and you take everything a step further, and you can't make any mistakes.
Call it my 13th and final labor. Soon I will become the god of war and claim the throne for myself.
Iria, só agora depois de dizer que iria.
The role of a combat designer on God of War 3 is a complex role. It basically has anything to do with characters in the game. Any character you see moving in the game, attacking, fighting, are generally implemented by the combat designer. And then, of course, Kratos. What his platforming elements are going to be, what his new combat moves are going to be, what weapons he's going to use, how he's going to use them, how he walks, everything. I'm here with Jason McDonald, who's a senior combat designer on God of War 3. And we're just talking about the new features that we have in the game and what we're trying to add to the God of War franchise.
Well, we've got some of Kratos' items in. You can grab a head and you can light stuff up. Now that we can play with lighting in God of War 3, we can make the entire room dark, have enemies that are attacking you in the dark, can't be seen, and when you light them up with the head, they light up for a limited amount of time, so you can attack them while you can see them, but then they are constantly disappearing.
You get the parts where it's completely pitch dark and you hear the guys scream in the background. You use the Helios head to find out where they are. The strategy gameplay, the combat side of it turns into you have to keep these guys lit to be able to hit them, otherwise you get screwed and they just destroy you in the dark. So.
Definitely something we couldn't do before, just because we didn't have dynamic lighting to the extent that we have it now. So.
We got the combat grapple in.
We tried the grapple stuff in God of War 2, but since we were limited on memory and animations and things like that, we just couldn't do it. If we couldn't do it well, then we weren't going to do it at all, so we just didn't do it. But now we have more space, more memory. Kratos is a very strong character, so when he grapples an enemy, he kind of just charges right in and plows through everybody. So the grapple system is exactly like that. You can launch somebody in the air and you grapple them and you apply yourself right into the air, right into them. If there's a crowd of enemies, you'll apply yourself through all of them.
Hey, I'm at Brian Eustace here. He's a senior combat designer on God of War 3.
For this particular boss, which is a huge scorpion, you want to make sure the presence is there and the player will feel the power of the attack. Usually for attacks for boss character, you want them to be really recognizable so the player knows it's coming, because if the player cannot recognize the move and react in time, you get hit, because it's boss character, you will take a lot of damage. So it's not fun if you don't see the attack coming, you're being hit. So that's something that we try to work really hard on.
I'm here with Jason DeHarris, combat designer on God of War 3, and we're just looking over some of the writable stuff that's early in development. So how do you think it's going?
It's alright in terms of Kratos. He still wants to kill this beast that's in his way to his ultimate goal, so it's not really his friend, so he's not really talented to attack. He's just trying to kill it, and then the indirectness of that is the Cyclops reacting to his pain, pretty much. But then there's a challenge of making it feel responsive as well. So I guess it's kind of disguising that responsiveness with the pain reaction. So even the pain reaction is really a hit action.
As you can see, we got a bunch of grunts on screen right now. When you're fighting all these grunts, like taking on, doing a special move or grabbing each one, killing them, it can be kind of slow. This would be an awesome tool for, you see the Cyclops in there, you're just like, I want to get after the Cyclops so I can jump on his back and do tons of damage and kill these guys quicker. But just like any other feature, you have to prove that it's going to be fun and good. If it's not, you got to get rid of it because everything has to be fun.
starting to do an environment, we'll receive a concept from our concept builds. And they do this elaborate, crazy drawing that looks really cool. And then from that, the design already has their design laid out. It's basically like a sheet. You just bunch of blocks and boxes that already, gameplay's already in there, it already works. From there, we go over it and we start building our level with it. You know, we layer on geometry, the hills, mountains, whatever's going to be in there, and incorporate all that into the sheet so it all plays together nice and make it look pretty.
Every corner in the game is pretty much unique. It's handcrafted. That's the difference. You look at other games, it's an assembly line, it's mass produced. They'll build a crate and then you'll see that exact crate hundreds of times throughout the game. You don't get that in God of War.
Good people in it. Everybody's really talented, super talented, but nobody has an ego or anything like that, so it's pretty cool. Cool.
What's gratifying for me is coming in every day and actually liking the job that I'm doing. You know, for my girlfriend, I'm gonna, you know, make this sweet piece of metal like even sweeter. I enjoy talking about it. She hates it.
The biggest challenge is getting it done on time.
You lose sense of what starts to look into you, and you actually need other people's eyes to tell that. And I think working with a team of guys that are always open to giving you advice and telling you, hey, this looks great, or hey, maybe this could be worked on a little bit, really makes the art come out to look a lot better.
I'm going to show you an example of how we do collision. So here's the basic level that we're working on right now, and then we have the stuff we call sheet, which is the real basic collision stuff that Kratos walks and runs on. So this is actually built by a designer. This gives us the basic places where he needs to run and defines kind of the gameplay spaces. And then we build our art for that. So what we then have to do at a later point in development is go in and make sure there's a cylinder around here, there's a cylinder around here, and that we make sure that we put in little divots into this collision so that he doesn't get stuck on things or walk through things. And then here, you can see where he is walking, there is collision. But if you look carefully right now, because the sheet isn't actually finished, his feet move through little places in the ground and things like that. And because like there's a wall, we have collision right there, he can't go through this wall. But we don't actually have any collision on this pillar, so he's going to go walk right through. So eventually that's what we'll have to do, is make sure that all that stuff is in there and that he can't walk through these pillars. And that's what collision is.
This is a concept by Cecil Kim, and it's the exterior of the top of Mount Olympus with the Zeus statue there. And that's where you're going to be fighting Zeus. And this is a piece I asked Cecil to do for me. And it's a top down of the ground. That's when concept art really comes in handy, because we have to do so much ground that Kratos is transitioning over that it's really nice to get some fresh ideas, and I'll take his drawing here and then start fleshing it out and coming up with crazy marble and gold, and yeah, this cool feather idea. You get dirt and stuff picking in between the feathers, adding, I guess, an extra layer of filth to the world. You build it clean first, and then I'm going to go in here and destroy it and make it look like a fresh battle that's happened. And
here's an example of a piece in Tartarus. This is a gate that basically raises up on these pretty detailed piece from what we would normally get from a concept artist. We'll get, you know, big vista shots, and then if it's an important piece, we'll get something like this to sort of detail out what it should look like. So this is what I'll get. My first step after that is to figure out these shapes in 3D. I'll create something like this. This is just a wireframe, you know, just like any video game. You know, nothing too special about it. We bring this into a high poly modeling program to really add a lot of the detail and like the grit and the texture. This works a lot like real clay. You can see how I can just sort of work over it and obviously not be that sloppy, but that allows me to get all this detailing and stuff in. Once we get it to that point, we end up getting all that high poly detail as a texture. And you can't really see it too well on here, but I brought it up on this screen. You can see how a lot of that high detail gets transferred on there. It's really kind of one of the big cornerstones of all this.
This is one of the Hades levels. You can see right here, it consists of a large room and then a series of halls, little torch things in there. This is pre-lit, this is just the polygons. In this game, you're pushing a lot of polygons. The environments are, at least this this one's probably twice the size of God of War 2 level in terms of polygons, and probably 4 times larger in textures. If you look at the screen here, this is the level after it's been initially lit. You see we have a nice blue going on now, which we just got. So you can see the softness that you have along all the lights. Before, lighting used to be really harsh. The bloom just gives it kind of this real-world foggy effect. Just gives the scene a nice softness to it. It's kind of a cinema quality. Eventually, his lighting will match the environments and it'll look really nice.
What I've been doing is building the environment for a movie trailer. So it's been a little different than building a regular environment. I imported the camera and I scrub through what the camera's going to see. I just make sure my environment fills in all the gaps. This is the base layer of what will ultimately be a condensed forest. This is constantly what I do. I'll just scrub through the animation, see where the camera goes, make sure I have enough detail in certain areas. If I don't have enough detail, or if I see obvious scenes.
E pessoal, como eu disse, esse making off aí vai durar realmente 1h30 mais ou menos.
Flying through this, and it'll all be blurred out anyway, and I won't worry about it. This scene is a little more detailed than a regular environment would be, just because it is a rendered movie. So that's the end of this camera. I mean, it then continues on.
This is the concept that we get, and basically this is an overall of the entire level. It's a big cave. And these rock pillars that you cave with the waterfalls. You know, it has little details in there, but it gives you the whole picture. You get your rocks, the greenery, the waterfalls, and then the architectural bridges. This is basically the sheet that we get from the designers, and that's the basic layout that we start with. And from there we start building the actual rocket geometry on top of the sheet. You have gameplay that you can go along with as you're building your levels to see exactly where the camera views are going to be and what you need to build out. Here's an example of where I start. I have all these rocks. This is going to be a whole rock level. You have a massive level on scale compared to any of the other ones we did in God of War 1 and God of War 2. And it's all very detailed rock geometry. It takes a long time to cut all this stuff in and make it look pretty.
Was the grid that I designed and modeled in 3D. So here in ZBrush, obviously, I added some rope detail. Whether it was a rope or not in the concept, it looked as close. I tried to get as close as possible, so I just assumed it would be a rope. So that's what I did here, and obviously we have some veils going inside. This is what it came out to be. We knew we wanted a different color than what we had in the original concept, so you notice the colors are a little different. We could actually bring it up to the PS3, and we can take a view of what it would look like in game. So back here is like the original model, and then here is the detailed version of that.
This is one piece of concept art for the Olympus hub at the top of Mount Olympus. I'm in the process of arting it. You can see a lot of stuff is still just the gray blocking pieces, but starting to get some of the detail. Pretty much the way they have our tools set up, anything I build here, I can, within reason, quickly send it over to the development kit. I can send the entire level over, so I can run around and play and interact with the environment. I can also take chunks of the environment, send them over just so I can kind of view a specific section that I'm working on. Still a lot of the gray areas I need to go in and fill in the details. You can see this down here still all needs to be done. This is kind of our art sheet version, which kind of block in the basic shapes and spacing and everything. These things we put in our level, they're scale versions of Kratos that we use just to make sure we're keeping our scale correct when we're building the stuff, so details don't get too out of whack.
To me, level design basically is creating an interactive narrative within each level that the player can engage in and essentially play through.
Level design is taking the story and premise of the game and then
translating it into a more tangible form that the player can experience.
Basically kind of figuring out how to lay out the gameplay to, you know, always have the carrot dangling in front of the player's head and kind of get them to the next part. What do you think?
I think that sounded amazing.
The script is pretty well written out, so you get a really good written description of what's going on, like what Bear's doing, what's happening.
Vamos lá. Eu acho que vai demorar mais ou menos 1h30, né? Eu tô acreditando. O primeiro vídeo era o mais longo, né? Ele deu quase 40 minutos aí. Os próximos aí estão sendo bem curtinhos aí.
We have so many tools in this universe and so many tools as far as what the game is built off of that we can pretty much do what we want. You know, we're limited by our imagination, and I think that's one of the most fantastic things that we're getting this project.
As a designer here at Sony, you can't just be good at one thing. It's really in our hands to do it all and do it well.
We often try to integrate the puzzles into the exploration of the level and with the combat. You're going to have a lot of games where all of a sudden you're in your fight mode, and once that's done, you're in puzzle mode, and it almost feels like you're playing two different games. One thing we try really hard to do here is to mesh those different kinds of game designs so we get a really more fluid and dynamic gameplay experience.
We essentially drive the vision of the level from the player's perspective and serving as the ambassador to them. So we need to protect their interests and make things easily understandable for them as they're playing through the level. You agree?
It's a constant push-pull as well with the designers and the artists, because the artist may want to put something that's visually more interesting in, but it could also impact the play space in a negative way.
I can't emphasize enough how important playtesting is to the process of letting out a game and not being what it is. Because when the player takes the product home, we don't want them to be frustrated.
You learn so much just watching people play. That's one of the most valuable things you can ever do, is just sit down, give the person the controller, and just watch them play and see what they do.
I think one of the strongest things that this team has actually is having, you know, our game director come in and play, and have members from all the disciplines sit down, because everybody, you know, chips in. Hey, how are we going to animate this? Animators are sitting in. How are we going to build this? You know, world builders are sitting in. Is this even possible? Coders are sitting in. That process makes everything just improve immensely, and I truly, truly mean that. I think a lot of people will say that, but here it's extremely, extremely, extremely noticeable.
And this is some ideas that I had for a grapple section where basically Kratos would grapple onto a broken column, and that would cause it to fall over, and he would be rolling down the hill with it and climbing up. Kratos hits a grapple point, swings around this column, lands on the backside, which has it to tilt over. It starts rolling down a hill, and he has to scurry up it using his climb. He gets on top and then jumps off to land on a platform before the thing rolls off a cliff. So that's kind of just some of the stuff that we think. And when we talk about big moments, this is some of the stuff that we deal with. I have no set process. I'll go from paper to computer to design sheet and then back to paper. It's really kind of organic. I love this idea. There was another version where we had a Titan actually holding onto it and like eating as it's rolling down, like trying to bite you like it's a piece of corn. That unfortunately didn't make it into the game, but one of the things is just because I love an idea doesn't necessarily make it the best fit for the game, and being willing to understand that and walk away from certain things that don't necessarily fit, you know, that's part of the job.
This is my grandpa's old man puzzle. It's one of these kind of puzzles you got to figure out how to kind of put it together, but this kind of gave me some inspiration for the Labyrinth. So the Labyrinth is like this level where there's all these different cubes, and they're kind of like strung up throughout the cave entrance. And they're all like on these pulleys and ropes, and then as you go around the level,
eu acho muito interessante. Os jogos da Sony, não são todos, tá? Mas pelo menos do da Santa Mônica, eles sempre foram de vir com making offs, tá ligado? Sempre foi de vir. O The Last of Us também veio, tá? O The Last of Us também tem, inclusive eu trouxe pro canal. Tive alguns problemas à época, né? Porque
like physically ripping the whole building up and then like looking at it, and then you guys start fighting inside of her. She comes up and then like rips it off, and then she, you know, comes up and crushes it and takes it apart. At the end, you guys are like fighting inside of her, and you end up killing her, and then she kind of blows up and crumbles all over Mount Olympus. For me, it's always like so amazing to be able to imagine this whole kind of crazy scenario, this whole world in your head, and then you're actually able to make it.
Aphrodite Chamber, which is where one of the infamous love-making minigames will be taking place within the larger game. This This is the preliminary room that I brought up in Maya. Roughly what's going to be happening is Kratos is going to be going through a hallway here where he's going to come to this room. There's going to be a bed in the corner with curtains drawn. And as soon as he casts them open, he's going to see Aphrodite with two of her very lively servant girls who quickly run away. She's going to go into the bed for a little hanky-panky. And we see the servants are very happy right there with what's going on. After finishing his job, Aphrodite is kind enough to draw back this large curtain, which will expose the portal, which will lead to another section of the game. So that's generally an idea of how we mock up an event relatively quickly so that we can assess how the gameplay will be, and then we can forward that off to art so that they can make it pretty. This is some of the things that concept art has done. This is the bed right here that you saw. It looks a little more fancy than the blocks that I've been using. Once that's done, we'll implement them into the game, and everything will mesh together perfectly.
Be gone.
Vamos lá, captura de movimentos. Deixa eu ver quanto tá faltando. Caramba, falta um. Acho que esse troço chega perto de 2 horas, velho. Lembrando que quando eu terminar aqui, se não tiver completo as 2 horas, eu vou jogar o gameplay, né? Vou jogar um pouco do modo arena. Sendo que semana que vem eu pretendo trazer mais modo arena, tá, gente? Pelo menos 1 hora de modo arena. Semana que vem eu gostaria de trazer. Lembrando que tem também o Type Hider, né? E tem 2 jogos aí da Plus que são jogos que saíram para o PlayStation Vita, mas que estão disponíveis também para PlayStation 4. E eu queria trazer esses jogos, inclusive um eu baixei, eu gostei bastante. Assim, pra quem tem um PlayStation 4, eu não sei que você tenha filho, é um tipo de jogo que meus filhos gostam, lembra muito jogo de celular, então pode ser que curta. Mas eu achei muito interessante a trilha sonora, a ambientação. É um jogo até tranquilo, fácil assim pra esse tipo de parâmetro de jogo, mas é muito interessante. Eu já zerei ele no PlayStation Vita. Eu não vou zerar ele, logicamente, tá aqui, pelo menos não a priori, talvez no futuro eu possa até trazer, detonar ele aqui, mas eu só quero trazer 30 minutos dele e do outro. É o máximo que eu quero trazer, porque são jogos mais simples. Não tem razão pra gente se alongar muito, até porque ele é um jogo curto, velho. Eu acho que eu terminei ele em 2 horas de gameplay. E bem tranquilo, né? Só uma fase especial dele que tem, que realmente é dureza. Mas o resto é todas as fases tranquilas. Puzzles tranquilos. Quem já assistiu os antigos making-offs aí do God of War 2, a gente sabe que em questão de captura de movimento, o God of War sempre foi né, bem avançado pro seu tempo, né?
Actually driving the Gaia character in real time. It's definitely amazing technology.
Take 2 ready. Rolling.
Alright, good, thank you.
Já estamos em 1h20, né? Eu tava jurando que duraria 1h30, mas tô achando que não, porque caminho que vai aqui, velho.
This is actually a first for me to do motion capture on a bed with pillows. We're working on the sex mini game with Aphrodite, so we'll have two of the girls today just doing both the parts of the servant girls and Aphrodite, which we have blocked out. So should be an interesting afternoon. If we have time tomorrow afternoon, maybe we'll put Benny in a suit because there are some things I'm sure.
If I'm gonna do that, I'd rather do it now to do the sex mini game with Ava.
Oh, I'm not directing it if you get in the suit, that's all I'm
Like
saying.
from the bed.
Yeah.
I'll be Aphrodite, like he touched me here. Let's do take 55. Ava? Alright, let's do take 1.
Kratos, it's been far too long. Even though you are no longer the god of war, you can still share my bed. Come, Kratos. Let us forget all about Zeus for a while.
You know I cannot.
Ah, is that what has you all worked up? You are trying to figure out that bridge contraption out there. Please do not deny me this one last pleasure.
That was great. Cut.
Ah, isn't that what has you all worked up? You are trying to figure out that bridge contraption out there. You little toes.
Exactly.
I think for casting for this, Betty found people who were good with their body in terms of motion.
Picked actors that had to be comfortable with a little bit of stunt work and a little bit of body work.
Mica essa louca. Frescura do caralho.
Yeah, we went out to dinner last night and we had a great time, like just talking about mocap and cinematics and video games, and it's just really nice to be somewhere where people appreciate all the work that goes into it.
Vamos pra música agora. A música do God of War sempre foi, né, fenomenal, né?
We're working with the San Francisco-based musicians from the San Francisco Symphony and the San Francisco Opera, who are phenomenal. We're really fortunate to be working with legendary engineer Leslie Jones. Tim Davies has orchestrated everything, and he's conducting from the podium. That's pretty sweet. He really knows the music, and he really puts us all into interpreting what the composers are after.
Really pointed, give me that nice pop on the end of each group. Here it is.
The music originally comes in from the composer in what we call a mock-up, which is basically he's using synthesizers as samples, you know, what we call them fake strings, fake brass, fake choir, to assemble the composition.
And then once it's approved, it comes to me to translate that and put it on paper for the orchestra. It's damn expensive to have an orchestra sitting there, so my job is to make sure that everything's spotless on the page in their language. When dealing with an orchestra as a conductor, I think 75% of it is your rapport and how you can interact with the musicians, getting them to do what you want in a highly stressful situation, making it lighthearted enough that no one freaks out, but you got to keep it moving. Give me everything you've got on those crescendos at the end of each phrase. Here it is. They're a pack, and they need a leader, and they're all brilliant musicians, but there's something about when you put an orchestra together, they need that focal point, that one person that they follow. These are pretty nasty swells where you got the flutters and everything. Feel free, if it's going to be smooth, to hit the note. Okay, here we go.
Saiu essa semana aí o gameplay do Destiny. Eu gostei muito, viu? Eu acho que o Destiny 2 ele tá, né, mais com cara de Band, né? Vamos torcer pra que o jogo seja tudo aquilo, velho. Porque infelizmente o primeiro Destiny, velho, eu que era fã da saga Halo, aí vieram com Destiny, o pessoal da Band, eu digo, ah, legal. Eu não vou ter Halo, né? Como eu tenho um PlayStation 4, mas a Band vai estar criando, vai ter muito do DNA de Halo, mas felizmente não. Eu vi uma boa mudança, né? Mas para se criar um universo rico, meu amigo, é complicado. E o que mais me deixa preocupado é porque Destiny, meu amigo, Destiny, ele tá nas mãos da Activision. A Activision, meu amigo, é terrível, é terrível. Vocês viram o que fizeram com o primeiro Destiny. Era um jogo super caro mesmo. Destiny foi comercializado quando o dólar ainda estava no patamar de R$2, R$2,30. Mesmo assim, ele foi lançado no Brasil a R$250. E só a versão básica, né? Nisso já estava previsto 2 expansões, tão meia-bocas quanto o jogo. Que o jogo era bom, mas não era extraordinário. Mesmo com as expansões, você tinha que gastar dinheiro com as expansões. Aí depois lançaram aquela O Rei dos Possuídos, que eu queria comprar, só que eu não pude comprar, porque pra você comprar o Rei dos Possuídos, você tem que comprar as outras 2 meia-boca, né? Aí depois lançaram aí a Ascensão do Ferro, né, que foi a última expansão. Quer dizer, quem jogou o jogo gastou 500 pau, velho, no jogo, né? Comprou o básico, depois comprou não sei o que, depois comprou uma expansão, outra. Terrível, velho. São práticas absurdas da Activision. Não é? Eu vou ver o que é o jogo, né? Se eu ver a análise, ó, pelo visto o jogo deixou um negócio para as expansões, um feedback para continuar nas expansões, eu digo tchau, né? Eu digo tchau, não invisto não. Apesar que o que eu vi tá muito melhor, né? Essa semana também a gente teve aí o lançamento do Injustice 2, que é um puta de um jogo a Netherrealm, meu amigo, assim, pra conteúdo, pra galera que gosta, que é mais, né, não é tão competitivo nos jogos de luta, apesar que quem se dedica realmente tem uma habilidade sobre-humana naqueles jogos, mas sabe, jogos fotorrealistas não tem quem se compare a ele, né? Até porque eu não vejo muitos jogos de luta normalmente. O que é que o pessoal usa? Sprites ou elementos 3D, agora que não são tão reais, é o estilo Street Fighter, né? Street Fighter, o próprio King of Fighters, né? Que não saiu, questão de gráfico a gente não pode nem discutir. O único que me recordo, e assim, se vocês se lembrarem, por gentileza me digam, é o Killer Instinct. Mas o Killer Instinct, amigo, é um jogo muito legal, tá? Ele é exclusivo do Xbox One, mas ele foi lançado meio incompleto, só com modo arcade, não sei quando, né? Injustice, assim como os jogos de Mortal Kombat, você tem modo história, o modo arcade, tá? Com final próprio de cada personagem, né? Meio simples, mas sim. Modo online, torre de desafios, muita coisa, muito conteúdo. Muito conteúdo mesmo. Os jogos da Netherrealm foram um deslize gráfico. Realmente você vê que houve melhorias gráficas em relação ao MKX para ele, mas também passaram-se 2 anos, né? Não haver evolução, né? Nesse sentido.
Aggressive, edgy material that people remember. Think about when you went to go see your favorite movie as a kid, and you walk out humming the theme, and you want to buy the soundtrack.
Oi, amor, que foi?
It's such a great part of the experience.
Véi.
Is to get people to buy the soundtrack to us.
We did just go down to the studio, and we saw where the game's at, and the game, as you probably have just played through a lot of this video, is amazing.
Criação de Poseidon. Caramba, tem muita coisa, velho. God of War. Criação de Poseidon. Eu tô achando que não vai ter gameplay não, velho. Vou deixar pra semana que vem a gente trazer o gameplay do modo batalha. Eu vou trazer pelo menos 1 hora, tá? Eu não vou trazer amanhã, porque amanhã eu quero jogar o Uncharted. Eu quero jogar o Uncharted.
It's everybody. You know, it's not just one person that comes to the table and has, okay, here's the perfect idea. It's everybody rifting together. Just like that game, the side that swells up with water, it just becomes semi-translucent. You can see all its veins and stuff. And so that way you're actually hitting flesh.
Going off of sort of like Will's idea, the combination of the things that we talked about this. His skin is basically like a jellyfish. On the inside of his body, he has all bones. He has actually a bone structure. That way we have a creature that, you know, looks like it has some meat to it and meat out of the ocean.
So I think, like, going off of what you were talking about, where it's like we can check like reef and seaweed and stuff like that, we can probably make it look like water's running through that stuff.
I would hope that we get at least all kind of that.
Legal.
A wave crashes up, and after you see like this far shot, the wave kind of overtaking the wheels of the heads. You're freaking out. I was like, you're probably freaking out right now because listening to that. But and then afterwards, guys, like something's fucked up right now. We can't. And then Kratos has to go out and find out what that thing is, and he runs into this one thing. It's like, what the fuck is this thing? And it's obviously connected to something else. And then he finds the other thing later on. And at the end, there's this big reveal. It's like, this is what this whole thing was that we were fighting the whole time. I think that's cool pacing because there's always a question in the player's head while we're proceeding. It's like, I don't know what the fuck this thing is.
When they first approached me to work on Poseidon, they told me it's going to be the very first big boss fight. Poseidon, if you remember from God of War 2, he looks more like just like a human god form. But in this game, he jumps down from Olympus into the ocean, and then he emerges out as a big water creature. This is my first sketch I did for Poseidon after doing a bunch of research on what Poseidon is, the god of the ocean, the god of horses. So I thought to incorporate this design of a creature of him being made of water and actual waves, kind of looking like horses. And then this is another one along the same veins, having a lot of horses, and just kind of going wacky. Another sketch I did was this one where I incorporated multiple Poseidon's heads throughout the design, showing that he's in control of this water tentacle. They like this design a lot with the multiple heads, and they also liked the very first sketch with him leading the horses. They like this one the best, so they like this for the overall direction. They saw this, they liked the feel of this, but they didn't like the direction of the octopus limbs because of previous bosses that we've had, like the Kraken. So this is just one of the limbs of the Poseidon creature, one of the arms. This one I incorporated the multiple faces, and then a lot of the crab legs. And then this is another one I did, and this one I wanted to kind of bring back because he's the god of horses to kind of capture some of that feel. So eventually they decided that instead of having two different arms, you're gonna just be fighting one arm. And they also like the idea of the horse. This is the final, the very end. You're gonna be opening up his chest and revealing like this membrane, jellyfish kind of membrane, where you stab and eventually kill one of his limbs. It's later going to be revealed to you that the whole time you've been only fighting one of his limbs right here. It's going to be a really cool, big moment in the game.
Turnarounds are looking pretty nice.
Today I'm going to be having an art review. We're getting to the completion of one of the Poseidon's limbs, so I'm working on the turnarounds now.
Get the animators up here and make sure that those limbs, the front limbs, are not too long for him. Like, he'd have to raise it up so high.
To get you right below, he'd have to be, like, basically have his arms way up like this. He'd be going down like that, and that's probably going to look a little silly. Let's have Andy finish this up. But, Andy, can you save off a version of what you have right now so Adam can go over it with Bruno? And just keep on getting me up here to look at it. Cool? Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. So we just had the review. It went well. They liked the direction, and I think a lot of it because before this is the view they've always seen, but they've never seen the front view. So for them to be able to see the front view and to see how the shape, the silhouette actually makes a trident shape, they really like that idea. I just have to finish this up. I'll probably finish it up today, and it'll be given to the modelers from there.
First time I heard about Poseidon Creature was 6 months or so ago, and I heard we're going to have a few of these huge Titan battles. This was the initial concept that was given to us. Things have changed proportionally for it to work right on screen, but it generally has the same feel. I still have a lot of sculpting left on this guy. A lot of this is just like the first pass. So right now I have more just the overall feel of it. Here's Kratos. He's pretty small compared to this guy. So I brought him in here just so I could have an idea of how big he's going to be. So when it comes to details, how high res this character has to be. So you can see him. He's tiny. I just want you guys to go over and check it out before I start making all the rocks for his face, So
yeah, I think it's good. Can we make sure that we're getting like some of this smaller detail like spread out over him as well?
Okay.
Can I see the scales on the back?
Oh yeah.
It's really fucking cool.
Poseidon looks to be challenging for every department because it's so complicated. When I first saw the
Poseidon, ele foi muito, né? É uma das batalhas mais épicas da história, né? Do God of War, né? Pra mim, sem sombra de dúvidas, a melhor, né? Acho que cada God of War ele sempre começou com batalhas épicas. E assim, eu tenho pra mim que as batalhas mais legais do God of War sempre foram as primeiras, tá? Tipo, nesse último aqui, o que eu mais gosto é a batalha contra Poseidon, é animal. No primeiro, o confronto com a Hydra, sem noção. E o segundo, com certeza, aquele gigante de Rhodes, né, da cidade de Rhodes, que é extraordinário, né? Muito animal. Apesar que todos os jogos têm outros negócios, né? Tem outros inimigos. Por exemplo, no 2, a luta contra as Irmãs de Destino, as duas primeiras, é muito interessante. Até porque tem uma parte que você é levado para o passado. É uma das sacadas mais geniais que eu já vi. Nos God of War de console, aí eu já acho que os últimos chefes são os melhores, né? Persephone no Chains of Olympus e no Ghost of Sparta, Thanatos, né? O deus da morte. Não é o deus do submundo que é Hades, é o deus da morte que é Thanatos. E aqui também, né, muita gente no God of War 3 diz que a melhor batalha é contra o Titã, né, contra Cronos, né. Eu não sei o que dizer, eu realmente não... Eu achei legal, né, mas dizer que foi a melhor, aí é complicado. Agora, note que as lutas contra boss finais sempre foram legais, né, no God of War 2, né, foram legais, foi legal mais ou menos, mas eu tenho pra mim que foi caindo, tipo... A do primeiro God of War bem legal, a do 2 foi legal, mas menos, e a do 3 foi legal, mas menos também, né? Até porque tem aquele conceito artístico, como eu disse a você, não, isso aqui foi um conceito artístico, foi uma forma que eles quiseram expressar, mas eu não gostei, né? Eu não gostei. Porque pesadelo por pesadelo, a gente já havia tido, né? No God of War 1, e eu achei bem mais legal ser bem feito, achei bem mais bem feito.
introducing this new creature that he has no clue as to what it is, and the first thing he's doing is fighting it in a way that he doesn't feel comfortable. This is the first Poseidon creature encounter. This right here is the first CF move kill for it, where he snaps its jaw. And at this point, the creature pulls away through Gaia's arm.
Incrível, né? O jogo basicamente é isso aí, sem textura, sem nada.
Jumps off, he'll transition onto Final Olympus.
The Poseidon encounter is very much like you're riding the Colossus from God of War 2. You're fighting the Hades on top of the Colossus. It's kind of incorporating all of those elements that work really well.
Eu ainda tenho God of War 1 e 2 no PlayStation Vita. Eu tenho o cartuchinho físico mesmo. Comprei. Muito legal, um senhor jogo, né? God of War, meu amigo. Eu joguei todos os God of Wars, menos o Ascension e um de celular que eu não tenho esperança que a Sony lance, né? Não custava nada a Sony fazer um port dele, né? Pra PlayStation colecionador poder ter, né? Já que foi pra celulares Sony, né? E ficar pra nós. Celulares Sony, meu amigo. O Corin Barlog, né? Que é o diretor do novo God of War, ele disse que já fez um playthrough, né? Jogou do início ao fim o novo God of War. Mas vale salientar, né? Que muitas vezes vocês viram ele jogando sem textura, assim, às vezes, muitas vezes é isso, né? Ele jogou, mas jogou dessa forma. Porque God of War, saiu alguns rumores que sairia esse ano. Eu não acredito, confesso que eu não acredito. Porque tem jogos aí anunciados que estavam em produção há muito tempo. Claro, God of War, com certeza, ele não começou a ser lançado, a ser desenvolvido ano passado, né? Claro que não, até porque já teve gameplay, já teve gráfico, direção de arte. Pré-produção de jogo às vezes dura muito, é um ano de pesquisa do que você vai fazer, de criação de história, de roteiro, né? Então tem uma pré-produção muito grande. E assim, a Santa Mônica lançou o God of War Ascension em 2012. Certo? Lançaram em 2012 e depois ela sumiu. A gente já está em 2017, são 5 anos, né? São 5 anos. Então não tenho dúvida que eles estão bem adiantados. Agora, para chegar esse ano, acho difícil, né? Days Gone também, que foi recém-anunciado, até uma galera aí que analisou aquele trailer, também não parece que o jogo sai esse ano, também não parece. Agora, eu tinha uma esperança muito grande no Detroit Become Human, que já tinha sido anunciado há muito tempo, né? Mas é aquele negócio, eles devem ter começado depois de Beyond Two Souls, que foi lançado em 2013. São 4 anos, 4 anos é um tempo razoável. Inclusive disseram que toda a história, né, e os desdobramentos da história de Detroit Become Human já haviam sido feitos. Foi anunciado ano passado, né? Vamos ver como é que anda a produção do jogo. A Sucker Punch, né, que faz aí o Infamous, também disseram que tem um novo jogo, mas só pra anunciar, né, velho? Não é? Você tem muito jogo anunciado pela Sony, mas que não chega. Quer dizer, alguém acredita, por exemplo, que The Last of Us chega? The Last of Us só mostraram um trailer. The Last of Us ele vai chegar em 2018, 2019, entendeu? É data pra ele. Então eu parto do pressuposto que eu queria pelo menos que o Detroit fosse lançado esse ano. Se não for, então ano que vem vai ser bom, porque com certeza ano que vem deve aparecer o novo God of War, o novo Detroit, o Detroit Become Human e o Days Gone. Então a gente tem 3 grandes lançamentos, haja dinheiro, né? E The Last of Us só pro outro ano. Mas eu torço para que tenha mais alguma coisa, porque tipo, o que a Sony tem? Até o final, claro, vai sair o Gran Turismo Sport, né? Então, né? Mas não é um jogo que me agrada. Então pra mim não tem o que mostrar. caramba, bicho, tem muito negócio, tá faltando menos que negócio lá. Eu vou tentar levando aqui. Até porque a gente começou cedo, né, as transmissões hoje, né, gente? A gente começou antes das... A gente começou as transmissões antes das 6h30, né? Um pouco antes das 6h30, né? Eu lancei porque eu sei que tem muita gente aí que curte o canal, mas não gosta desse tipo de conteúdo. É por isso que eu botei mais cedo, né? Quem se acordou cedo aí viu. Inclusive entrou aí uma pessoa, assistiu um pouco e saiu. Eu entendo, mas a qualidade do conteúdo que eu trago é sempre a mesma, né? É bem simples, né? Então, o que muda é o conteúdo. Eu acho muito, né, não razoável você não pôr esse tipo de conteúdo. Então eu ponho, porque a galera, se quiser assistir na sua casa, isso aqui, vai lá e assiste por título de curiosidade, né? Claro, quem tem um jogo vai assistir no seu console. Com a tela de TV é bem mais tranquilo. Quem não quiser, assiste no YouTube, né? E o YouTube disseram que ia ter que ia ter uma funcionalidade igual ao do como é o nome? Do Netflix, né? Que você pode baixar jogos para assistir offline. Então você poderia baixar os conteúdos do YouTube para poder assistir. Para mim seria uma mão na roda, porque às vezes você quer assistir alguma coisa, algum conteúdo, e assim, eu sigo muitos canais, eu curto muito conteúdo, mas às vezes me falta tempo, né? Eu cuido desse canal, eu trabalho, eu tenho filho, eu tenho esposa, então me falta tempo, né? Eu tenho que ter tempo pra mim, né? Do jeito que eu trago conteúdo pra vocês. Ultimamente, hoje vai ser dia de maratona. Eu tô fazendo muita maratona, tá? E vou fazer muita maratona, tá? No início do próximo mês, aí a gente vai ter menos maratona, né? A gente vai ter menos maratona, tá? Porque no início do mês eu vou jogar alguns jogos, então... Porque tem muito jogo pra trazer. Eu vou dizer só alguns jogos que eu tenho aqui pra trazer detonados pra vocês, que eles estão na fila nessas minhas maratonas. Beyond Two Souls e Rebel Rain, Mad Max, Doom, cadê ele aqui? Horizon não tá não. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, né? 2, 3, 4, né? 4, 5, 6 jogos aqui de maratona pra gente fazer, né? Muita coisa pra trazer, velho. Muito conteúdo. Eu vejo que quando começar maio eu vou me dedicar, o jogo que eu vou me dedicar a jogar mais serão 2. Será finalmente o Drive Club. E depois do Drive Club, e além do Drive Club vão ser 2, né? Então vai ser também o Outlast, que eu comprei em pré-venda a versão física. Aí você diz, mas por que não tá jogando ainda? Comprei em pré-venda. Porque a versão física ela chegou tarde. Não sei se isso só foi no Brasil ou se foi no mundo todo, mas a versão física só saiu dia... Beleza. Programação. Tô tirando meu celular novo, ele ainda tá com alguns plásticos aqui. Esses plásticos eles estavam tão grudados que eu pensei que era pra ficar, mas não. Eles começaram a desgrudar alguns, eu tirei. Agora terminei de tirar todos. Ok. Dá uma olhada aqui nas novidades dos mundos dos games.
Just 4 magnitudes bigger than
A Devolver Digital vai fazer conferência na E3? Já ouvi falar dessa empresa. Vamos ver aqui o que ela... Um novo Hotline Miami. Ó, desenvolvedor responsável por títulos indie renomados como Hotline Miami, Broforce, The Talos Principle e outros realizados sobre... Inclusive o Hotline Miami eu tenho né? Muito bom. Jogo muito bom, indiezinho. O Broforce também eu tenho, assim, porque eu ganhei ele na Plus. Cara, é muito legal. Eu ainda pretendo trazer esse jogo. Por quê? Ele é um shooter, tá? Mas com cenários totalmente destrutivos, tá? Em 2D e pixelizado. Mas o legal não é isso. O legal é que existem vários personagens. Esses personagens variam conforme você morre, porque você morre bastante. Mas os personagens são baseados, são paródias de personagens de filme de ação dos anos 90. É foda pra caramba, né? Então você tem personagens assim, é o mesmo nome, mas eles mudam alguma coisa pra não ser, né? E o visual é idêntico, tipo Exterminador do Futuro, o Rambo, a loura de Kill Bill, né? Cara, é muito legal. É um senhor jogo. Eu zerei só pela zoação, velho. E é muito bom, o jogo é muito bom. Mas assim, o que eles têm são esses dois e um terceiro aqui que eu até citei. Chroma Squad, o simulador brasileiro de Power Rangers, chega hoje ao PlayStation 4. Ontem, tá? Chegou aí. Nunca gostei, porque é RG tático. Se isso aqui fosse um beat'em up, né? A Sony também anunciou o calendário transmissões para a E3 de 2017. Serão mais de 15 horas de transmissões ao vivo. 12 de junho, segunda-feira, né, vai ter o PlayStation Media Showcase 21. O que será isso? A partir das 22 horas desse mesmo dia, que acontece a conferência da Sony na E3 2017. Dia 13 de junho tem a PlayStation Live From E3 2017, das 16 às 22 horas. 14 de junho, PlayStation Live From E3 2017, 16 às 22 horas. É o mesmo evento. É 13 e 14. 15 tem mais uma. Sempre de 4 às 8 horas. Cada uma com 4 horas, né? Live PlayStation, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. Essas páginas transmitindo não apenas a coletiva oficial do gigante, mas também as demonstrações complementares. Meu amigo, conteúdo, né? Mas assim, semana dia 3 eu assisto todas as conferências, todas, não só a da Sony, tá? Que é a que mais me interessa, mas a da Nintendo, a da Microsoft, até pra ver como é que tá a concorrência, os grandes jogos, as grandes ideias, tá? Eu gosto de ficar por dentro. Milton Leite e Mauro Betti estarão no PES 2018, né? Também gosto. Eu nunca gostei muito da... Assim, quando eu era mais jovem, e Silvio Luiz... Porque Silvio Luiz, ele tá um pouco mais velho. Então, você sente a idade, né? É uma realidade. E eu gostava muito das narrações dele como comentarista. Quando ele trabalhava na SBT, isso há muitos anos. Eu já não gostava dos comentários dele nos jogos, porque tá passando do tempo, né? E assim, no PES 2017, não 2015 mesmo que eu não gosto. Eu achei muito ruim. Aí botaram Milton Leite, né? Legal. Milton Leite é um bom narrador. Apesar que, estranhamente, apesar de Silvio Luiz não ser uma boa narração, quem quiser dizer que era, tem a dó. Mas o Milton Leite aí foi criticado, né? Foi um dos pontos negativos aí do PES, a narração dele. Talvez falta um pouco de ritmo, né? Tem uma demo aí do Guilty Gear XRD Rev 2, tá disponível na PSN. Guilty Gear é um jogo de luta aí muito famoso no Japão, né? Aqui nas Américas, pelo menos aqui no Brasil não é. Não sei se nos Estados Unidos eu acredito que não. Ele ainda usa sprites, né? Ele e o BlazBlue são os únicos que usam sprites, né?
This is the opening level. This is when Gaia is climbing up Mount Olympus and you're on the back of Gaia. Art was just added to this level, so you would try to run along different areas and make sure Kratos can't pass through the road, like right here. So in this case, I would go in and give the artist the coordinates to this certain location where Kratos is inside the rock. And that artist would make a collision pass, fixing that collision so I couldn't fall through it. I'm loading the test level to test the Wraith. It's basically this enemy that burrows underground. And the only way you can actually attack him is to use the L1 and circle move, which is your grapple. When he's under the ground, I'm supposed to be able to grab him out and slam him on the concrete. But that's not working right now, so that's when I would open up my Test Track Pro and write up a bug report. It's our job to play the game over and over and over again. So after you play a certain section a certain amount of times, it gets a little repetitive, but that just comes along with the duties of being in QA.
It certainly takes some of the romance out of it, but it's a real pleasure being able to see the game evolve day by day, step by step, asset by asset as they are implemented. It's very exciting.
We're not quite artists. Close, but not quite. You know, some of us have artistic skills. But, we're not quite programmers either, although we do write code, right? Once again, not so much this guy.
And tech art helps make the stuff, and we help people use the stuff.
Because without us, nothing would get done. There's a huge gap between the engineering guys or the coders and just regular artists. So we kind of bridge that gap.
Artists don't understand binary. When a programmer comes over and he's like 00101, it just goes one ear, in one ear and out the other, right?
Yeah, they think it's a phone number or something.
We have to invent things ourselves and come across certain lines that nobody has crossed before.
We're good at it though, right? Right here.
We're pretty good at it.
Yeah.
We've done so many crazy stuff in the past that there's nothing that surprises us anymore.
The artists were having trouble just building things. And their levels, the environment guys just built huge, gigantic levels. Bigger than this guy. Yes. And the levels themselves, they just get really big, and they only need working on a small section of it, just a little portion. And I wrote a tool that lets them pick which parts they want to use and export just that as a level. And to get that, they just came to me with a problem.
They wanted to exaggerate Kratos and the torture that he does to his enemies. So we came up with a system called the zipper tech, where basically the animator would use controls to open up wherever the cut is on the character. The character artists would model out wherever the cut will take place, and we'll put the rig on top of that. So here we have the Centaur rig and the zipper tech. The Centaur's guts are going to be opened up. And so basically the animator would go in and create the CS move. You can go in and individually select these controls and open and close his gut. Here we have the guts for the Centaur. They're going to be part of the props. The animator will go in and animate these guts spilling out of the Centaur. And so the guts will be placed in and around here. And to further sell the point, we've got separate controls over here in the middle where you can actually pull out the insides.
From God of War 2 to God of War 3, we've used dynamic simulation more and more to do more secondary animations on the characters, whereas before on You know, the previous games, you know, the hair would be stiff or the cloth would be stiff. They would be kind of modeled into the creatures. Now we're actually adding motion to those pieces. So you will see hair kind of moving, you'll see cloth kind of moving.
Towards the end of the previous game, I, in collaboration with Jason Minters, had created this dynamic system that uses the Maya hair system to drive a series of joints. So as you can see, each of the snakes on her head are independently moving. The animator did not have to individually pose all of these animations, but they have control over the physics so that they can get it to get into a pose that they want, but still when the character moves around, you'll see how the snakes will flow backwards when she goes forwards. It responds to movement, so it improves a lot of the workflow for the animators. It's pretty rewarding to see as characters go from our department through the rest of the pipeline and then come back and actually see it in the game.
So what I received here is a model of Kratos. What I'm doing is adding the wrinkle in his facial expressions. It's being driven by the actual joints in his skeleton. So as you can see, as I lower the joints, his wrinkles go away, and just like a real human, as the joints move up, the wrinkles start to show up on his face. That's some of the new technology that we're putting into the characters and Kratos. Here I have another example. If I lower his shoulder, you can see veins start popping out and striations start popping out on his shoulder. So not only are we putting this technology into his face, but it's also going to be in his body. In the beginning, Yuri kind of got a little freaked out when he got the project because, you know, it was one of those things where it was like, okay, you need to work on this thing, this crazy tail rig that will do everything that we need to get done in this game. There's 4 of us on the team, and we all kind of took a stab at it. And, you know, it was kind of an iterative thing, but Yuri definitely solved the problem.
What we see here is the battle between Kratos and Medusa is trying to constrict Kratos. The idea the rig can do dependent and independent motions. You can rotate one section at a time, I can move one control at a time. So now, for example, here, I'm affecting this part of the rig, and I'm also affecting controls that are right next to it. Things are stretching, and things stay in place or not.
I think the key to it is that it's, for an animator, it's very easy to use. We can use it on many types of different creatures, tails, ropes, hair.
In God of War 2, there was a creature Kraken, and that thing had huge tentacles. And Matty, he was lead animator and game lead animator back then. He animated it, and he complained a lot. And after he saw this rig, and after he saw what guys were doing with Medusa, every time I walk by him, he just thanks me for making this thing.
UI is user interface, anything that's not game related, so menus and meters and combo numbers and all that good stuff.
The hallmark of a good UI, I would say, is making sure that when the player goes through the menus, that they're able to navigate pretty easily and understand where everything is. And when instructions come up, we want to make sure that they're there and they're clear and they're obvious, but they don't kind of interfere with the gameplay.
This is what we refer to as the shell. It's the kind of like the intro to the game. Currently it's our alpha version, so it's somewhat simple, but basically we have a skybox in the background. You can see the clouds animating. This is the real Kratos model. We're actually calling an animation to the character. So when you choose a new game, you get a sub-menu, and you can choose if you want to play an easy, normal, or hard. Very hard is locked out in the beginning. So you can see that when I choose a game, you'll see like the camera pan into Kratos' face, and then a video starts up. So all of that has to be hand-coded.
So this is the basis of the Pandora's box, the menu system that we have in-game. So it's a full 3D model, and then I get that into the UI and do everything that needs to be done to make it work. So tag it with all the tags it needs, text elements, things like that. So all these kind of proxy quads we have in here all represent a line of text that shows up in the game. We pretty much start off on this demon face side, and we zoom up real close to frame it so that it's kind of more 2D looking. This would be the power-up menu. So you go to this menu and you upgrade your weapons, and you're able to kind of zoom into the models and rotate them around. At least that's what we're hoping. So we won't make it for alpha, but we're gonna shoot for beta. You can swap between menus by hitting R1 and L1, and that rotates the camera around the box to another side, and then we frame another side of the box and put information for like the items menu. So this is the items menu. Top of the box is the status screen, so that's how many kills you have and all that good stuff. And then we push through into the box to get to the moves list. And then it goes in kind of like this cycle, so you can cycle through all of these menus in order. So pretty much what you're seeing here is the Pandora's box, and then from here you go, you swap to other screens, and we have all these kind of cool little animations going on. And eventually inside of these screens there'll be much more ancillary animations and things going on. This time around, for God of War 3 anyways, we completely switched our system up. This time it's all 3D, the same shaders that we put on game objects we use in the UI, so it opens up a whole new avenue of what we can do. Also opens up
Eu espero que nos próximos 10 minutos aí termine, velho. Cara, eu quero jogar! God of War hoje mais não, velho. Hoje vai ser só Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. Vamos jogar aí umas de 3 a 4 horas do The Phantom Pain. Eu não sei ainda, porque eu vou ver aqui se baixa os outros da Plus pra gente jogar. Caramba, ainda tem muito, pô. Caramba, desenvolvimento gráfico. Caramba. Nossa, é 2 horas e meia, bicho.
What's usually given to us is a quick description and then sometimes a write-up on whatever that creature or character has to do, their function in the game, and there's always sort of a highlight on special abilities or things that we need to focus on.
There's only 4 concept artists here. We all sit together, so we do get to see what each other, what we're doing.
I feel like I should know a lot more about mythology by now. I should have a PhD degree or something. But still, I just sort of make up a lot of things, and this is still fun. Right now, as you could see on my monitor, working on Pandora's Cage. This is the final concept design that was approved, and it's good to go. But to get to this point,
I must wait a bit for baby. São 5 horas.
we even try the guys holding a cube, or we even try the guys holding the torch. So after all this variation, I wrote out a page, which was this 2 characters, Icarus, because I'm mainly focused on environment. I took a lot of pictures of myself. Actually, it was my wife took it for me last night. It's kind of embarrassing to show it. I'm wearing my boxers and just shirts.
Porra, é isso, meu irmão. Caramba, o cara tá de roupa de baixo, bicho.
The front side and even the hands. So a little frustrated, deals with a lot of rectangles and cubes, and where the light is gonna
Ah, é ele mesmo, ó.
when it comes to characters, it's more organic. For me, it's more difficult.
Monte.
Palace of the Gods. These are the basic thumbnails I showed to Then from here, we start to bring in all these location elements where each portion of the buildings are representing different levels. It's not just figuring out the entire look of the place. I
troubleshoot to figure out how each sections are connected. The actual elevation of the location and how it's connected has to be pretty accurate. Every time I do a second pass on the concept, it raises some questions. Feedback means change, and after that it raises different questions, and another meeting, and feedback again, and changes. So it started with very ambitious and very inspired task, and then slowly it became a big headache. But the funny thing is, you never get to see this scale in the actual game, because actual gameplay, when it takes place in this top section here, like you see this entire concept is being drawn up from the entire mountain towards the balcony area where most of the gameplay takes place.
One of my most favorite tasks was to create Aphrodite, the goddess of love. My chore, as it were, was to create the most beautiful woman that ever existed in Greek mythology. Here I've got some initial sketches. There's a lot of Greek art involved, sort of the bare breast and things like that. So we were trying to come up with a way of framing these really feminine aspects of this character without being like just vulgar. I originally had her hair always bound up, very Greek-like, but they really wanted it hanging down. This is the final three-quarter view of Aphrodite. As you can see, some of the stuff that I had originally concepted in the other pieces did stay. One of the mandates for the character was that she have a girdle made by Hephaestus. Some of the backstory is that Aphrodite was given as a wife to Hephaestus by Zeus. In original Greek mythology, she cheats on Hephaestus by bedding down with Ares, the god of war, the original god of war. He punishes her by catching her in a trap with Ares and sort of parades the two of them in front of the other gods to shame them. And she was ashamed. She's a naughty girl. But in our story, he just kept her trapped. We've got various somewhat sexy bondagey entrapments that we've worked up. So the modelers will take this and build, Aphrodite in the flesh. And I must say, I'm really looking forward to see what they do with it.
Do you know how long it's been since a real man has come into my chambers? Those bridges outside are nearly destroyed. Zeus refuses to have that stupid mortal Daedalus stop working on his precious labyrinth to fix them.
Caramba, essa porra vai dar 3 horas, bicho. Caralho. Acho que hoje eu não vou trazer os jogos da Plus, não. Vou jogar só Metal Gear Solid 5 mesmo. Tá louco. Eu quero ver se vai dar 2 horas e meia. Esse troço não vai acabar, velho. Quanto mais eu puxo, mais tem, bicho.
Special effects, duplicated what they did. We filmed the blood and the idea that maybe we can use some of it for textures.
Sacrifice
We used a couple little parts of it right here. This is the film blood. You got a series of images that we rendered out. You put those on the polygon cards, and that's what you're throwing out of the system, basically. Or splatting on the ground. That's kind of what's going around in the game. There's a little blood splatters when Kratos gets hit or enemies get hit.
Vamos lá, dublagem.
Recording session for God of War that we're starting today is the culmination of a lot of preparation. This is definitely the most complicated session I've ever put together.
Nós vamos ver aí o dublador. Eu tenho certeza que essa altura do campeonato muita gente já viu, né? O dublador do Kratos é esse indivíduo aí que tá de vermelho, velho. A outra é a voz de Atena. Vai ter esse Carson, a voz de Kratos. E ele fala até cara de mal, velho. Hã? Isso aqui? Tome. Cuidado com ele pra não cair, viu?
Many more variables than normal voiceover session for a game today, and it went very, very well. I'm happy with how today turned out.
Phenomenal.
That's all that really matters. Stig is happy. Stig's happy. We're all happy.
Olha quem fez a dublagem de Hércules, pô. O ator fazia Hércules. Kevin Sorbo. Legal, velho, legal. Porque ele é o Hércules, mas não necessariamente o fato de ele representar o Hércules no passado seja um bom ponto de partida. Aqui.
The most valuable I can be is to be what the creator of the game has been imagining and seeing on paper for a long time, and bringing it to
Tome. Agora só baixa isso, não baixa mais nenhum não, senão eu apago todos. Se você fica sem celular.
It wasn't the same Mercury. It was not even close to it. So it was a darker, more sinister person and a more evil person to deal with and play. But from my standpoint, it was a lot of fun.
New recording. Very excited about it. Today we're doing Rip Torn and Malcolm McDowell. The game's based on Greek mythology. This guy's like the Smith guy, and he's like, yes.
Olha aí, a Rip Torn. A voz de Hefesto. E ele parece mesmo com o Hefesto, viu? Michael McDonald, voz de Dédalo. Aí, esse ator é famoso. Almoçar com...
He said that if I took the liquid fire and the sling, oh my boy, oh my child.
That's different than what we thought.
Vengeance on the king of gods. You'll need an army of gods. And weapons. Of course, weapons. I could build. I could use the fire of Hades. Wait, please. Please, wait. Free me. Free me from my torture. Thank you, Squad. Thanks, Mom. I say Squad.
We're not used to people coming in here and nailing it, so, like, basically knocking it out of the park like this. So, we have more time, so.
Well, no, listen, I just thought, oh my God, I thought I had reams and reams and I had to do everything twice. It was like, oh my God, if you've got it, you've got it, right?
Right, yeah, we got some great stuff. Right, that's fantastic.
Good, thank you.
My pleasure to work with Malcolm McDowell and Rip Torn in the same day. The different acting styles. Malcolm McDowell is very much the Royal Shakespeare Company, and then comes in, you know, word like that, and Rip Torn is more of the old actor studio. He's a little bit out of nowhere, but out of that comes a gold of its own kind.
There's an extra level of dimension and texture that we got today.
What have you done with my child? My boy, where is my boy? Your son is dead. Oh, my child, no, no, no!
A medida de um homem é o que ele faz com poder. Isso aqui, gente, já é vídeo aqui aqui já é vídeo do... já é vídeo daquele início, né, do jogo. Então, beleza, a gente não precisa ver isso. Queda de um guerreiro, vamos ver o que se trata aqui. Mostra aquele finalzinho lá. Ok, tem vídeos do jogo aqui. O conto de Hefesto, né? Mesma coisa. O segredo da chama. Mesma coisa. A história da caixa.
Aphrodite, I knew you would return to me. Kratos.
A derrocada de Zeus. Do jogo final. Ok, gente, esse aí foi um making off aí. Temos esses outros vídeos, mas a gente viu no gameplay, então não é necessário. A gente viu aí toda a produção. Eu vou ficando por aqui. Eu volto logo em seguida para continuar o detonado do Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. Então valeu, falou, até mais.